Welcome to another episode of Feed the Trolls. I've been asked to introduce myself as Bag Girl moving forward. So if you watched The Last Horseman over on Last Free Nation, apparently Richard Lewis referred to me as Bag Girl when you were talking about the Yellow Compass issue.
Oh, right, that joke. Yeah. It's because if people don't know, in the Yellow Compass report by Lewis Mill, it's obviously a really serious, investigative journalism thing about a company not paying. But Sam is in that, and she gives a personal testimony, and she tries. I was right with my read, right? You were trying to say it to actually be show that there's people who have it worse than you, but the way you phrased it sounded like you were like if I did that, that'd be me low-key flexing on them, because basically you were like, listen, I'm owed about $2,000, which luckily for me, that's me, fuck all really. I'd like a cigar with it right now, but for other people, that might actually be money, That's almost like the vibe you gave. Even though I know you didn't mean it that way. I know you never mean it that way.
I know, I was trying to be like, there's people, I knew that there was other people that were like,
yeah,
you're going to lose
probably owed like 20K or something, yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I'm trying to
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I just didn't get paid. And then in my attempt to try be sympathetic towards other people, I came across I was flexing that I made.
No, basically, she's like that. You know that famous joke someone said that, if Steve, I know it was Bill Gates famously, that he made so much per minute that people say if he dropped $5,000, it's not actually worth his time to bend over and pick it up. Obviously he would, but in theory, his time's worth more. That's what makes it sound like for you. It's like, oh, we bloody pick that up, whatever.
I'm just picturing you ripping $2,000 as a cigar real quick.
That sounds baller. Someone, by the way, someone use AI and make that. Make her just fuck off, stogie.
Finally, AI is useful. Yeah, finally,
exactly. Something good.
I'll take it. Someone make that. We want to see that. Let's get into the conversation we're going to have today. fl0m is obviously joining us, and we want to talk about the downfall of Vitality. That's a really hectic clickbait title that I'm just going to bang in there.
And we did suggest this before they almost fucking lost M82. We even suggested it way before that. This was planned. Yeah.
But you say that, and I thought, here's the problem. Now they've actually made it to land. They're probably going to win the whole of Blast London. And then the show will be...
You better edit this one quick. You better... This is my fault, by the way. This is my fault. I was the reason why this video will be late. This is me.
Anyway, let's get into what I actually want to do is, before I start asking about what's happening with Vitality now, let's talk about the era, the big run, the 7 trophies, back to back, the major win. Because this is an argument that I've seen lots of analysts have, and I'm always just curious what everyone's input is. So fl0m, why were Vitality so dominant in the first half of the year, in your opinion?
One that I don't hear enough of, everybody else was worse. And that's not to take away from Vitality, by the way, as there was noticeably, I feel like, a slight drop off from everybody, similar to what I feel like we're seeing again now after the player break. Is there's this slight little dip across the board. I feel like teams there was no clear favorite. Spirit won the major, but nobody after they won that major, they were number one, but it didn't feel like they were really number one, untouchable team or something like that. So one, I feel like it was kind of up for grabs. It wasn't this era or something that they were walking into. And then the other side is ROPS was dropped right into them. And this is the obvious one, but they had an identity already. And, despite what Falcons tried to do, Vitality had a real identity. They knew exactly what they wanted. They knew the exact player they wanted to get, and they got him. That's pretty rare. I mean, that was perfect stars aligning for them, to where the point is if they didn't win a lot, I think it would have been we'd be talking about this completely differently in general with how well that lined up. So I think, as tacky or cliche, whatever you want to call it, as it is to say that ROPS just fell in their lap and it worked. I mean, that is what it is. But I think the framing is better to talk about how they knew what they wanted, though. They didn't just oh, ROPS is a good player, let's get ROPS and put him in here and we're going to start winning. No, Spinks was frustrated not playing with the pack anymore. He didn't want to be the lone wolf guy. And ROPS loves that. He doesn't want anybody to be near him. Give him a 50-foot radius and he's happy. And that's where he thrives. And I imagine also his experience winning the way that he did on FaZe only adds to the Vitality's confidence when he gets into that team. He's exactly what they need. And he wants to do it, probably excited to do it, and brings a breath of fresh air into that team and a winning culture into an already somewhat winning culture, and maybe the best player in the world, or one of them that we constantly talk about. Holy crap, you couldn't ask for it better. And I just think when the field was weaker, I don't want to harp on it too much because it feels like I don't really want to try to downplay Vitality, but it just felt so open for somebody to kind of at least go for it and at least win a few. Now, not losing since January is crazy. I mean, I will admit, I don't think I ever thought that'd be possible.
Probably never will happen again, let's be real. It'll be like
but that's what we always say this, right? We're always saying something like this, and then somebody goes and does some crazy stuff. So I don't know. But yeah, like it felt impossible for a run like that. So Rops fall into their lap, wide open field, lot of parity between teams, and knowing exactly what they wanted, got exactly what they wanted is just perfect. Stars.
By the way, the beauty, obviously, of this topic is it's super wide open and we can speculate on many areas. Like, when he says that, he obviously doesn't mean, like, the teams are worse and then they just tripped over and won all the titles. Like, that just made it a little bit easier in certain areas. Like, the obvious angle to make, because I definitely agree, is if you look at the strength of the rosters now from what the first season was, well, think about it. There were still games where Vitality would have a close map or somebody getting the 3 maps, but they always prevailed. Like, they never ever
Falcons.
slipped up when they were close. In fact, obviously, yeah, the Falcons won at IEM Melbourne. On paper, they probably should have lost. Like, they were down 6-12 on the deciding map. It's basically game over. So the amount of miracle comebacks they pulled off. So I'll just do a really quick run through because I was writing it down when he said it there. Here's the opposition at the beginning of the year that should have been potentially a danger to the guys from Vitality. And I can literally run down all of them and you can just deconstruct them all immediately. So, like, the obvious one immediately is Na'Vi, team of the year last year. Like, Na'Vi doesn't even make finals. That's nothing to do with Vitality even, by the way. Like, they haven't even had to play Vitality almost at all after these tournaments. Na'Vi was just worse. Spirit were the winners of the major, so they didn't make a roster move. That's why I had that hot take after the major win. Like, actually, Donk being too good is going to make this team win less because they're going to just think we can do that every time. It won't work. And as you can see, Spirit actually in the first season was always second best to Vitality the rare times they played. MOUZ was never even supposed to be a contender after the Brawlan move, and first everyone thought they were going to be terrible. They actually ended up being like the second or third best team. Falcons themselves only got Munacy, like from IEM Melbourne. That was like right towards the latter half of the season. FaZe was supposed to compete with Elise and was completely irrelevant. Virtus Pro on paper is supposed to be good, but everyone knows how that went. Spoiler, Electronic just lost his job. Team Liquid was supposed to do something that never ever manifested at all. And then the last 2 teams I have left is the teams that actually surprised everyone and sort of made advances in light of those other teams fucking up was Mongolz and Aurora. And those 2 teams, especially Mongolz until recently, used to be notorious chokers because they were inexperienced in playoffs. So even though this is not to say, by the way, like you get an era and you win all those games, but if you have a super amazing team that has all these amazing qualities, and then on top of that, you give them essentially like all these weird problems in the rest of the field, it will create a scenario where you can be more dominant. And if people don't know, the most dominant team in CSGO, people would probably agree, is Astralis. You could do the same thing with Astralis. I won't do a super long version like that, but if you ever looked at it, like, for example, at the time Astralis had their era was actually when FaZe Clan had that thing with Carrigan where they consigned him to being not the IGL and then kicked him. You had like other squads out there that weren't like the right roster. Maybe G2 still had a French lineup, you know. You could do the same thing. You could shadowbox. Na'Vi still had Edward and Zeus and people like that, you know. So you can do the same thing. And then lastly, I'll just briefly say this as well. I also actually think the map pool being different helped them in the first season as well. Because somehow by the end, there was nowhere anyone could get them. Like early on, people actually tried to test them on the train. If you remember, that used to always be the decider. They just never used to lose ever. By the end of the season, everyone who could pick Anubis picked it because it was the one map that was the 6th map with their win rates. And if you don't know, they almost never lost that either. So if you actually look, it really was a perfect storm of like, they were fucking insane and they got like perfect scenario. And if people don't know, the last thing I'll tie back to Astralis to show that this isn't dissing them, because we all think Astralis is the GOATs. I've always said people do miss that Astralis literally had their era after Valve removed their permaban. So it's the same thing. Like Valve essentially buffed their map pool when they were already really good, and then they just become unbeatable because the joke is then they could like ban Mirage, which they even used to like before that. That wasn't even a bad map for them. So this is why even if you're the greatest, you need a bit of luck as well. That helps you become the greatest, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Luck is when timing meets preparation, right? That's
yes.
I always love that.
It's a great
mean, you need a little bit of everything. You can't just like walk into it entirely. I think the other thing I forgot to mention is something that always impressed me on this run is how much they knew that it was like they needed to strike while the iron was hot.
Yeah.
I feel like that actually some teams are afraid to almost admit that at times. Like you'll get in these interviews and it's like, you know, they said like the normal, like, yeah, we don't care about the streak, blah, 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 which actually I kind of think they meant. But they also always would say like, you know, how much Apex would like really push into them that we don't know how good we're gonna have it for as long as we have it, so just go, you know. And I feel like, I don't know, it was refreshing to hear a lot of the times in those interviews where you could really tell that they were trying their absolute hardest to seize the moment and not just be like, yeah, we're a really good team, we're just going to see how things go and see where. No, they're like, we need to go now, like.
By the way, your Rob's point is mad underrated too, mate, because here's another factor I'll immediately draw the comparison. The exact same thing happened with Astralis. They already had a roster that was really good. True. They changed one player for a better player in that position, and then they became the most dominant team ever. Essentially, what we're talking about is you're not really like creating the team from scratch. You have 4/5 of it already. You're just getting someone who's better in that role, and then you just enhance the squad. I don't think that's a coincidence, mate. What the two best teams we've had in the last like 10 years both had the same pattern. It seems like there's something to that. They had a base already built, didn't they?
The Magus move was, I completely forgot. I mean, I knew it happened, but I forgot. Yeah, that's a great comparison. Yeah.
So my next question would be, if you had to take a look at that first half of the year when they were so dominant, in your opinions, which team came the closest to potentially being able to take them down?
I mean, I guess Falcons, right? They should have beat them.
But here's the thing, the reason it has to be Falcons, surely, is not only did they almost beat them and get them twice to 5 maps, but also, you have to add in, I think the reason most people thought they could win is because they had the Nico Modesty factor, didn't they? Like, if you have those players, you even saw it in those scuffed G2 lineups, if those two players go off at the same time, they can win you a lot of fucking games, mate. Whether or not the team's better, whether you've scouted them. I agree. I think it has to be Falcons just for, like, punching power, sort of. Because the problem is, even though MOUZ Sports had all those awesome runs, there was a reason why there was that thing after the major where it's like they'd lost, like, 7 times in a row, bro, and they were just like mentally destroyed, weren't they?
Astralis Liquid all over again with MOUZ.
It really was
and honestly, I would tell people I felt like MOUZ was the better team to go against Vitality, because when it came to the map, it felt like it always felt like they could have the longevity, especially in the best of 5 in those finals, to actually maybe go pound for pound. But yeah, you're right. Like, it always just kind of fell flat. And Falcons had punching power, but it felt like as soon as they lost that nuke, that was the rivalry's done. There was no rivalry. Everybody's like, this is it. It's gonna done. This is gone.
So now Vitality wins the major. They lift the trophy. We're all celebrating. We were debating whether it's an error or not. And then they come into IEM Cologne and they lose in the semifinals. And everyone is horrified and shocked. I don't know what either of you, I wasn't shocked. Like, I kind of also felt like at some point you have to lose, right? And I was excited for MOUZ. I always knew, I'm just going to say this, I always knew that final would be dog shit, because MOUZ was celebrating way too hard.
They thought they won already, didn't they?
Yeah, that was their final.
It's impossible not to, though. You can't even, like...
Oh, it's human nature. But you know this, fl0m. What I can tell you as broadcast talent, one of the most dreaded things you can ever say, it's a cursed phrase, is you say that line where you go, this was the real final. The amount of times it then fucks you and the underdog from the other side of the bracket wins the actual final and makes you look like an absolute idiot. Even though, I agree with you, it's totally human nature. If you lost 7 times in a row to the team that wins every tournament, you win. You probably should celebrate like that. That doesn't happen very often.
You can't just ignore it. I mean, they knew they were trying. Like, you
imagine if they just played off like Donk, like whatever.
I know that's like the only person, but that's Donk, and he's an anomaly. There's only one. You know, like you lose that team that many times, you finally beat him in the semis of Cologne for that. Like, you didn't beat him.
Yeah, exactly. Your home event as well, by the way, for MOUZ. It's huge, yeah.
Like, it's massive. It was impossible. It was the biggest trap setup of a game ever. It was you can't even blame MOUZ in that scenario. I don't. I would have celebrated. I might have gone clubbing. I might have gone full Immortals that one time. Like,
of course. Yeah.
I don't know if they did that. I just remember going into the finals. So I was obviously watching from home, but you could see the crowd was so hyped because of what had happened yesterday. We were all up here, and then that first map starts and you go, oh shit, this is not going to play out the way we were thinking. And you could actually see it in the crowd. I could kind of hear the crowd also dropping off as they went, because we were all expecting that MOUZ magic. But obviously then Vitality, they lose in the semifinals. Then there is the next one where they lose, I think it was to the Mongolz, and now they haven't made a finals. And everyone is very upset and everyone's very concerned. And I obviously for this show, the whole point is to feed the trolls. So I go on Reddit, I go on HLTV, And holy hell, the amount of people who are like demanding roster changes all of a
Oh,
sudden,
what the
and like
Vitality?
it's so, and I'm
hell,
sitting there being
okay.
like, they're still in semi-finals.
Sure.
Like they're actually still doing quite well.
That's
Like
the
it's,
whole project.
I know.
Well, that
But
was my
this
thing
is
where-
this is where, even though it is sort of like the fuel that makes this show exist, I do understand that. Yeah, that is one thing that does my head in, when it's like they'll be like, bro, they won't even have lost the series. They'll be like down the first map to like, you know, like M80 or something. Everyone will be like, era over. Cut. So like, they haven't even finished the match. Like, it's not even over yet. Like,
Zywoo.
true.
But so this is the thing though, because I mean, I think Apex has even actually posted on social media about this, where he's just like, okay, we understand that we're not playing at our best. We know we're not winning. Like, but if you're, I think he did a whole thing in French where it was basically like, if you're not a, like, if you're a true fan, like you'll understand that we can't win everything.
They're
Like,
in the
we're
semis
working
still
on-
every time. That's pretty fucking good. You
Well,
know?
apparently it's not. If you're a Vitality fan, this is unacceptable.
I know. Okay. I
but-
learned otherwise.
So I suppose going back to the first question I asked, we'll ask a different question, but sort of similar in the sense of what hasn't been working for Vitality
Okay.
at the beginning of the second half of the year, do you think?
Go fl0m. What do you think? What's the most off thing for you?
I think at least to me, eye test, this has nothing backed up by stats. It just looks like they can't take the same amount of space that they used to as freely. I think Vitality with Apex and fl0m's was at the first half of the season getting a lot of space in areas at the start of rounds where teams weren't really expecting it. And then once people came to expect it, they didn't really have answers for it necessarily early, like Apex getting into like secret on like, it wasn't like massive timings where like he's flanking them or doing something crazy, but he basically would take space in a map maybe 15 seconds faster than some of these other teams would. And it kind of forces the mid rounds to happen earlier. And then because the mid rounds were happening earlier, Rops gets to go to work and Zywoo gets to be with the pack, and they get to start finding ways. And this goes back to them having their identity in their core. They know exactly what they want to do. So Apex, all he has to do is just start spreading the map a little bit and getting into areas where he shouldn't be, maybe just slightly faster. And same with fl0m's. And it would allow a lot of space in other areas, not exactly where he was, for Rops, Zywoo to look for positions and different plays like that. And I feel like now teams are disrupting Apex and fl0m's a lot more in the initial like 30 seconds of a round, where Apex getting to secret doesn't feel like he's getting into secret as quick, as fast. It doesn't feel like fl0m's is able to poke around and prod behind him. It doesn't feel like on Mirage sometimes it just feels like they get stuck earlier in the round, basically, to me. And that like on an eye test level. And then when you look at like the stats, I think Apex has had a drop off, and so is fl0m's, and probably the biggest too. And I think in that first 15, 30 seconds of every round, there's a lot more emphasis on Vitality to not let them move into key areas. And that really is just, and then it's a compounding thing, because now Zywoo doesn't get those same looks that he's getting in those mid rounds. And Rops isn't able to, off of Zywoo forcing a guy, he doesn't have to get a kill, but then Rops might have an isolation, you know, at like ramp or something like that, or wherever it might be. Maybe he occasionally likes to look in hut. You know, I love Nuke for these types of comparisons because there's so many different avenues that teams can manipulate timings. And that is, I think their early rounds have suffered tremendously since the player break. I don't know if it's because teams have targeted that. I don't know if that's because of individual level from fl0m's and Apex. But that to me is where they're getting bogged down.
I mean, first of all, I definitely agree on the fl0m's angle, because if you ever saw when they were in their like absolute pomp in the first season, he was the guy where like he'd get like an opening kill. So already you're winning the game, by the way, because you got Zywoo and fucking Rops coming behind him, and they were just amazing on like how good they were just tearing the map up. His stats went way down. And then the player that's crazy is Zywoo. Zywoo went from like, is he the best player in the world? Like, remember, he's winning every MVP, every tournament. To like his actual stats. Remember, one thing about people like Zywoo is they're stats monsters too. It's not just the eye test. They always put up bonkers numbers. His stats, this has been basically the worst month of his career, as far as I can tell. Like, even past times he ever slumped was more when it was just in the online era when no one gave a fuck. It was like spring or something, you know. Now he's actually for real just had some really bad lands. Like, if you go watch some of the matches they've lost, some of them he's actually been for real, out fragged by Mongolz players, etc. Whereas before, you took it for granted, like you already had the best player in the servers, as long as you're not playing dog. And then the rest is like, right, now we add in, Rops and then Messi. Because I actually think, fully enough, the one person I would say I don't think has been affected at all is Rops. Like, he seems like he plays just as well, mate. He's kind of
feels like he's powering up almost.
Stable. Whereas I agree, like, fl0m's definitely like has looked bad, but look, you can't ignore the elephant in the room. He was just being way worse. It's why I personally don't actually overreact that much like a lot of the fans. I feel like, mate, if I had previously like bona fide #1 player in the world, if we can get him anywhere back to that, remember this guy, it's not like he did it for 3 months, he did it for like 5 years, guys. Like, I would assume he's going to go back up to the top again. And when that happens, I tell you what, a lot of these problems will suddenly magically get fixed. I feel like, that's how the game tends to go in it.
He needs the space to do it, though. That like, it really, and that's where everybody always likes to critique him, is because, Zywoo doesn't run it down. He does sometimes. He has like certain set pieces and stuff like that. We famously like the Inferno op play where he likes to run up there and like create space. He has little plays he likes, but
he doesn't feed like some other people, though, does he?
No, exactly. So it's not like he needs to bait somebody, but he really wants to find his fight in the middle of the round.
Sure.
It doesn't even need to be an advantage. He just wants that fight, like whatever it is. And I feel like that's where they're struggling.
I want to talk more about Zywoo, but before we get into that, I just want to go back to something fl0m said about maybe other teams have sort of done a little bit more studying on Vitality. And this is something I brought up on another show that I do with Donna, but it's something that Alexi B mentioned when Na'Vi was going on that mad run and they were winning those trophies, which is when the fall-off started to happen, he said there's no time for the winning team to actually do anything but just keep competing. Because if you look at how the schedule runs, from event to event now, you have maybe after finals, you have a day to travel to the next event, and then it starts again. And so for a lot of teams who maybe go out in the group stages or are dropping just before sort of playoffs, they can go home for a couple of days or a week, or they can go in boot camp for a week or whatever it is and work on things. Whereas if you are the team that is making every single final of every single event, you are literally playing in the tournament for 2.5 weeks, playing a final, lift trophy on a plane the next day, start next tournament. Like, that is your entire life, and that has been Vitality's life since the major. I'm presuming, or up to the major, I'm presuming after the major they all went on holiday because it would have been well-deserved, but they haven't really had any time to change their strategy, which was something Alexi said that they struggled with, because he said then all the other teams use that time to figure out what you're doing. Sure. They have all their analysts studying everything. And then all of a sudden you're playing and suddenly people are figuring out where you're going to be positioned. They're figuring out how to shut you down, and you haven't had any time to change your game plan. Do you think that has happened with Vitality now in the second half of the season, or do you think they just haven't quite found their strength that what we saw in that first half?
I'm sure that's happened. I'm absolutely certain that has happened. I just don't know if I fully feel like that always happens, though. So that's kind of and that's just part of the game, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's not.
No, but I think what he means is it's like reality. A natural part of the life cycle of being a top team, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just gonna happen. Like Apex tweeted, right? He's not going to win every event. It is impossible to win every single event.
The question should always be the opposite. Instead of it like, why didn't they win 8 events in a row? Say, how the fuck did they win 7? Like, that's pretty nuts in itself. That's pretty good.
I'm sure teams have scouted them. But also I feel like that when we frame it that way, we're implying that nobody looked at him the whole run until the player break, which is not true either. I think it's I don't like this word too much, but burnout. Honestly, they needed the break. Then once they come back, everybody knows what you're doing, but they knew what you were doing before. Yes. They were all studying the whole way while trying to get that edge on you. So really, is it? I would say it's more likely that they're just not in as good as form, and you can't just like expect the engine to be exactly where it was, right where you left it when you completely turned it off.
The whole season, yeah,
exactly. And now you're turning it back on after leaving it off for a month and a half, and you're expecting it just to be right there again. That's not going to happen.
And remember, they also had that thing in the first season where you had to redline it initially because you were trying to win that Grand Slam really quickly. And then also you had the whole thing where then when you get the Grand Slam, then everyone goes, you could have an era, you could be undefeated. So then that's the next thing. Well, guess what? Once you win, you are going to psychologically have like a little drop of like, right, can I catch my breath for a minute? I also do agree, by the way. I always tell people the thing I think is the most amazing about Astralis and their era in CSGO is actually that they never did like this and win 7 events in a row. What they used to really do is win like 2 or 3 events, lose 1 in like the semis, win 2 or 3 events, like lose 1, and then it's like No one ever truly stopped them. They just got little speed bumps. But I actually think that helps. Like, it's actually good when someone beats you, because when someone beats you, it forces you to take account of like a slight hole you've got in your game, or maybe there's something not quite synced up. If you keep winning every time, your brain tells you like, that's working though, isn't it? Like, they haven't got me yet. And there's just a normal person improves once they make the mistake. The real beauty of Australia is way backwards. It almost felt like they could every time get ahead of themselves before they lost and got toppled by a Navi or a FaZe or a Liquid or something. They just kept staying on top. But I tell you what, that is why there's one team in history we all say is the GOATs. It's not even, it doesn't intend to be a debate, does it? So this is why Vitality were for season 1 flying in the most rarefied air ever. Like, I don't know how they did that. The joke is I can give you more answers to why they're bad now than I can as to why they never lost in the first season. It doesn't even make sense, really. It almost feels now that we're back in reality. Now we're back in reality. It feels like that was a dream. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't feel like that actually happened. Like, did they really just win like 30 whatever in a row? Like, surely not. Surely they lost it for you, you know.
It's predictable now, right? It's all predictable.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's funny, though, is also if they win the next major, no one's going to care. No one will care that they've lost.
True.
Nobody will mention Cologne. Nobody will. If they are in gear for the major, this whole episode will look hilarious because they are just, and it'll be a big laugh at the end of it, because that's part of the Astralis era too, is people, when they won their majors, people in their head basically take out all the speed bumps that you just had, and it was one continuous line. They didn't lose ever. Yeah. And you know, like, no, they did. They actually did lose quite a few times. Not a lot, but enough to where it wasn't one continuous streak, but they got the majors. And that quickly starts to blur, and that just looks like one giant streak rather than speed bumps or anything that hindered them. And the same thing will happen for Vitality if they can perform and win the next major. Nobody will care that they got knocked out in the semis at Cologne.
By the way, one thing you said earlier, though, is when you say, obviously this is not to say in season 1, everyone was like, well, wait till the next season to study them. No, but this is the part people do forget. Teams aren't static. They're not really running the same playbook from January to now. Like, on all the maps, even if you're winning, by the way, you keep updating your playbook because people study the demo and they're going to get the conditioning down and your pattern you do. And if he does X, they do Y after. And because of that, that's what I mean about staying ahead. So, if anything, they played that game at the highest level possible of staying ahead of the meta. The problem now is, it's not even like they're behind, but there's a bunch of teams with them there now. That's the issue. Is now when Mongolz play, maybe Mongolz have a few angles and a few things they see. And I agree with you, definitely. The most underrated thing is the burnout. That if you are always in the final, bro, how many more games do you play than even second and third? Like me, even MOUZ had a ton when they come semis and get to go home a day early or have a day off, or like the sheer strain of always having to be at your peak level must get to you after a while. And remember, we don't need it to get to all 5. Only has to get to 1 or 2 people. And all you need is that little, you take a tiny few % down and suddenly the whole thing collapses. One last thing to say as well is, this is why I always tell people, please don't fall for the mistake of when a team is insanely dominant like that, looking at the stats of the worst players on the team, because their stats always get inflated. Like there was games where like Apex and Mezzi had stats that were like, this doesn't even make sense, mate. I can even see on my screen they're not fragging people that hard, but the numbers are just crazy inflated because they're like the best players in the world around them, and they win every fucking round. So like, it also made people forget. Like I always used to tell people in season 1, I don't actually consider this Vitality like a super team, mate. I think it's just an amazing team. It's just one where all the roles fit. I don't think this is like the craziest roster ever. I don't even know that it was the best roster on paper, by the way. You can argue that teams like MOUZ and some of the other squad and Falcons, maybe some of these had as good a roster at one point in time. Who knows?
Maybe it's tough, but I always appreciate an identity of a team, like for sure, over star power. And I think you know, I always like to point at that Cloud9 roster that on paper, my God, what a roster that should have been, and how crap that was. But I'll shut up.
Yeah.
I was going to say, fl0m mentioned there about how if Vitality wins the major, it won't matter that they were losing. They don't even have to win a major, just an S-tier trophy. Mongolz, after they came second at the major, we did an episode here, I think it was with Steel. Yep. And all 3 of us said...
It's not poorly.
Yeah, at that age.
I think we even said they'll never make a final, or we don't
never make a final.
I think I said that. Yeah,
there was Steel just went hard about how he doesn't rate the way they play. It's not very good. Everyone's upgrading firepower now, so Mongolz won't feature this.
Listen, we got the hits. It's too late. You can't take those back. You click the video. It's too late now. We got all the hits. We fooled you all again.
Let me tell you something about Mongolz fans, though. They remember and they come back.
Do they?
Because straight after that trophy, did the comments start coming in?
Oh, the old video.
On the old video.
Come on,
and then
boys.
I still have the clip of Cadian calling Mongols noobs. I have it as a short, and I always joke and say I make a couple of cents because every time Mongols does well, people come onto that video and they're like, "Where's Cadian now?"
Sure.
And now they have 2 videos on this channel to come in and harass us on. But anyway, so there you go. That
you
is
win
what
this
happens.
one, guys. You win this one. Got to give it up.
You didn't predict the 1.5 rating out of Techno?
Listen, I just don't know the game, obviously. You know, I've only watched a few. You know.
Oh man.
That was
by the way, that you're saying that like that's no big deal. I did have people like that, fl0m, who were like, I told you he's really good. It's like, he's never done that before, has he? Like, I'm not blind. If he was doing that, I'd say he's really good too, wouldn't I?
Like, I didn't think he was awful, just not that good. Like,
I know. He's only done like a 0.5 stats increase, but okay, all right, guys, whatever you say.
60 minutes of all of us saying, well, it's not that Mongolz was good, it was just that everyone else wasn't that good. And look how that happened. But
that's tough. That's tough.
I mean, I'm used to it now on this show. I've just accepted.
Yeah.
The hardcore Mongolz fans remember, but like Vitality fans won't remember. They'll be celebrating when they win the major, so it doesn't matter what we say. I did want to talk about Zywoo because obviously best player in the world for a very long time. Always the topic of conversation. If the guy is not having like a miracle game, then all the trolls are shitting on him, talking about how washed he is and how terrible he is. Like, but he hasn't had a very good start to the second half of the season. He hasn't looked on form. Do you think it is just a matter of, fl0m, like you said, a bit of burnout for the entire team that's causing that?
Yeah, I would assume so for him too. I think that's why it's the first time we've seen him take that big of a dip. And it'd be easy to be like, well, the team, you know, me piggybacking on what I said earlier with the space creation, you know, I was giving him a pass, but honestly, really thinking about it right now, it is, even when his teams previously did poorly, he would usually excel and rise above, kind of like what Rops is doing right now. So the fact that he's also kind of taking a dip with the team, you know, I think is a great point from Thorin, because this is the first time we've really seen this. And I can't really logically get to any other spot than just saying Burnout. That was just a monumental run where I'm sure he appreciated the break and he might have just lost a little bit of form, but not to the point where you're like, you know, this is all within the framework of comparing him to himself. Like that's also like,
exactly.
You know, it's not like he dropped off and he's making like some terrible run. No, he's just making a bad run compared to himself. And that's, I think it's just burnout without trying to get too grand about it. I wish I could make a cooler point, but I think we're all human at the end of the day. You push it that far, that long, have that much success, and you get a month break. You might not come back exactly the same. Now, Rops is just a robot, so I don't know what's going on there, but
no, by the way, I know what you mean. What I would say is this, right? Even in this last month, which is like the worst month of Zywoo's career, he's the 11th highest rated player in the whole fucking world on LAN. Like, if that's his worst day, it's pretty fucking good, isn't it? So,
that's it. That's the worst you'll ever see him right there. You better screenshot it and remember it. Yeah.
It is kind of mental though. Even this episode where I'm sitting here going, like, we're talking about Vitality and like, oh, well, what's happening this season? They've just finished every event in the semifinals, which for some teams is more than they will. I mean, Liquid, it's more than Liquid's seen for a while. And like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Can we not talk about
like,
Liquid? Can we just
everything goes back to Liquid, bro?
Just for fun.
It's like I'm streaming all over again in my chat. So what do you think Liquid's gonna do? I'm watching Vitality right now. Like,
but it is mental that like we're speaking like this. They're still in the semis. Like that's still in every semi-final. It's insane because there's been a bit of drop off on form. But are we a little bit unreasonable to demand that they continue to perform at the level we saw in that first half of the year?
Yeah, but who cares? I mean, they did it to
do
themselves.
It anyway.
No, I'm serious though. Like,
listen,
they did it to themselves.
I hate fans as much as everyone else, but if there's one thing every fan has as a birthright in Counter-Strike, it's the right to be incredibly unreasonable about the expectation levels we have for the other video game players. We all reserve that right. What would CS be without it, is all I'm going to say.
And we're just comparing them to themselves. I mean, that's it. That's all this is. It is a monumental fall off, unfortunately, because of the bar that they set. So if anybody's upset, it's their own fault. But I mean, it's unreasonable, but I don't know. It's hard not to watch that streak and then wonder what's different, right? Like your mind's curious. Like, how did it go that well? And then all of a sudden we start this slow. I think for them, it just needs more time, and then 6 months from now we can really start to hit the panic button, like for real.
Yeah.
I think right now it's wait and see more so. It's just interesting to see what pieces kind of take the fall off the hardest. Like, oh yeah, Zywoo's had like maybe his biggest drop in form. Flames is kind of struggling, but then it's so interesting because so few teams that start to struggle actually kick it back up. And there's only really ever been one that's done it. And that's the team we always talk about being the best ever. And that's the position, that's a privilege that Vitality now has, is that they have now taken a dip, and can they actually do what other teams haven't and pull themselves when they have that dip in form and get back to where they were previously.
I'll tell you who will get the most points if they get back to number one. It won't be Zywoo. It'll be Apex and Xstars, the coach. They're the people who've got to do the job now, I'm afraid. Even if it is that players themselves are playing back. I agree with you. Another thing people do forget is, I always say this, if you ever actually go and look at nearly all the top rosters, unless you're like the Mongolz and you have like, we have to be from one country, actually most teams do not have a life cycle of a 5-man lineup lasting more than 9 to 10 a year, basically, usually at most. Like most teams anyway change players, because what you tend to do is you change player initially, you have like 2 or 3 months to get to the top, then you have your plateau middle period where you got your chance to do what you can do. Then when it starts to get bad, you give it a few months and a few lands, but when you don't get the results you want, you change players. So it's actually quite rare. I agree with him. To go right back to number one again, it's very rarely ever happened. The reason, if anything, that by the way, in some counterintuitive way, the fact that we're puzzling about why can't they just be number one and win everything again shows you how insane the team was. They've made our expectations so unreasonable. I mean, by the way, in a weird way, it's like a movie. Like when I saw them do those comebacks, like that one they did against the aforementioned Melbourne one against Falcons on Nuke, when they complete a comeback like that, like you'd like put your fucking life in their hands after that. You just think they can never, they're like Superman, they're always going to win at the end of the day, aren't they? Like, surely they can't ever really lose. That's why, in a weird way, we're not even really puzzled by like in-game things like, oh, Zywoo set his shots up list. What are they doing on T-side and Mirage? No, what puzzles us is like, why does Superman just die now? What's going on? Like, this isn't supposed to happen. It doesn't feel right, does it? I feel like Jesus was walking on water, then I was sinking. Like, come on, mate, he's not walking again. What are you doing?
Stand up. What are you doing?
I know, exactly. You fucking wash, Jesus. Get fucking walking again. What are you doing?
Oh my gosh! But
that's why Buddha was always underrated. Exactly, Buddha number one. Donk. There you go.
Amazing. Obviously, when we were moving into the player break, and
apologies to anyone deeply religious, obviously watching this episode. That was all in jest, and any names mentioned that better like this to your savior was not what I meant.
When we were doing, obviously, when the player break comes, there's a roster change. There's all these rumors going around, and the main topic of conversation was teams were going to go out of their way to upgrade firepower so that they could go to toe-to-toe with Vitality, right? That was the conversation that was happening. Every roster rumor was they need to upgrade firepower to go toe-to-toe with Vitality. What's interesting is the two teams that have beaten them so far didn't make a single change during that. And it was MOUZ and the Mongolz. They were the exact same lineups that were playing them in the first season. So what do you think changed for those two teams?
I do think it does help that. I think those might be the two teams that had played them the most times. I think they'd both played like a bazillion games. So that, by the way, there's another thing people take out for granted. Just like you're saying, fl0m, that in season one, of course, people studied them. These two teams especially studied them. You'll be studying the fuck out of them when you lose them every time.
You're dreaming about them every night.
I'll give some props to those people and those coaches. Like, you know what? You're not an idiot. You're not just going to fail the test a million times in a row. Eventually, you're going to crack something. You're going to get some sort of an opening. You're going to have some angle. Maybe even simple things like even switch up the map veto and stuff like that. But I do think that's one thing Mongolz did. Mongolz just realised it's just always Mirage against this team, mate. That's where our chances are. For some reason, that's the map for them.
Yeah, I think it actually kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, where you're wondering what happened with some of these teams that kept the I just think the level got worse. The tricky part with all these arms races from these teams is they lose their own identity sometimes. And a prime example of this right now, funny enough, is your Cologne champions. I think that they are literally in a crisis almost, because they were like, they played Vitality, got smacked around, and then they were like, this is your bar, by the way, and if you don't hit it, you will never win. It's like, uh-oh, we don't hit the bar. Donk does, and the rest of it, and Shiro does, and the rest, no. So it wasn't, Magic, the Magic's move wasn't because Magic's is some awful Counter-Strike player. It's that in the arms race of Counter-Strike, they were shown what the level was, and they didn't have it with him. And so they needed to make an adjustment. The funny thing is now that Vitality, basically, in my opinion, is having that burnout and is declining, now it kind of feels weird because they just won Cologne, and really all they needed was Donk and Sure because of the pathway they got. And the other teams don't necessarily have that bar either. They weren't able to beat Vitality on that run. But you know what MOUZ did have is a great floor with a big map pool. And what Mongolz had is good team chemistry and the ability to just shoot pretty much any team out of the server when they want. Like it is ridiculous because it just feels like they flip a coin on who's going to shoot well on Mongolz. It doesn't even. It make good luck trying to analyze that. I heard you guys did.
So. By the way, I
also, really well. Really well.
I also do think as well that, like, on the side of Mongolz, I'll tell you a player immediately who does play better is Senzu. That guy who always on paper looked like he should be the best, but he was one of the reasons they choked all those times earlier this year. He used to never show up in the playoffs. He had like Stown syndrome, which it just never happened, did it? The last month or so again, and basically, by the way, I think it was the event, I think it was the Dallas one just before the major. He already started to cook in the playoffs. Mate, he hasn't stopped. He looks mega now. Like
I'll never forget Senzu on Dust too.
Choking and suddenly he's like actually hitting his mark. Yeah,
and so I think it just comes back to a lot of those teams that made arms race choices, we'll just call it, basically they lost their level. Luckily for Spirit, they have that guy named Donk and they have a guy named Shiro, so that kind of masks a lot of problems for you when that happens. And I won't say they had like an easy path, but I'm just saying their road to Cologne didn't feel like they were ever tested, and especially
they also never have to play
situation.
Vitality directly, man. Let's see that match.
Exactly, same thing. And then MOUZ got to play them again, finally beat them. They're like, we finally slayed the beast, and then Spirit's like, well, hello there, we're used to you, you know, like Doc's like, I played you guys a few times, like I'm ready. So I think really what you're seeing again, and I always preach this, is we judge Counter-Strike players and teams off their floor, not off their ceiling. We did. I mean, Vitality showed us the ceiling. Don't get me wrong. But the floor is what's interesting. And right now, the floor has gotten lower because Vitality came out of the break, and because of that, I think it's opened the door for other teams. And I think it's really wide open right now, to be honest, like across everything. I mean, I don't know what Spirit's gonna do. They don't feel. It feels like the start of the year again. Actually, like Spirit won Cologne, just like they won the major, but you don't really have confidence in them to repeat. I mean, they just got knocked out today. Spoiler of when we recorded this for London. And then, you know, I don't have faith in Mongolz to win every tournament or something like that.
This is why you got to be careful what you ask for, mate. Because when one team dominates, all the little plebeian peasants are like, oh, we have to kill the king, he's a tyrant. Oh, there must be a free reign for everyone. But then what happens is when you have just, what they want is they want a different person to be the king. You don't want it to be wide open.
They don't want real chaos. They don't want...
By the way, that's the perfect one. Now it's chaos. Now no one knows what happens every event. And I agree with you, by the way. Look at those two teams, Mongolz and MOUZ. If you use what fl0m just said, fl0m's razor there, judge them by the floor, not the ceiling. Those are the two most consistent teams in Counter-Strike. Those are the two teams that are pretty much unlocked to make every semi. Even Spirit can go like first or fucking 10th. They can do that. Look. Those two teams, Mongolz and MOUZ, now are in like 1 billion semi-finals.
And you wouldn't predict either one of them to win.
I think there was a stat after the first couple of events Vitality lost that MOUZ, even though they never won tournaments except that one PGL, had actually had like an average higher overall placing than even Vitality for the year because they'd just been in every semi, I think it was at that point in time.
Yeah, they played more tournaments, I think, too.
They also played all the PGLs too. Yeah, sure.
But yeah, you wouldn't predict Mongolz or MOUZ to, like, for sure. You wouldn't say they're going to win the tournament like you would Vitality, like or like anything. It's like you expect them to be in playoffs. And there's a couple other teams that might join them, but you don't know who's going to win right now.
Also, mate, here's another thing people forget. We all keep forgetting it's not CSGO. There hasn't been a team that dominated like this. Even Na'Vi, by the way, used to make all the finals, but like lose half of them. They'd lose every other event, wouldn't they? They'd win more and lose only. Like, in CS2, everyone said at the beginning of the game it was fucking random. It's all just people headshot. The joke is, it's no wonder Xantares is really good. Everyone thought CS2 is just people Xantares speaking everyone and shooting you in the head on Mirage. You're like, where's the game? The game's gone to the dogs. It's got lost. It's like that fucking NBA boomers. You're like,
there's no tactics anymore.
Yeah, exactly. That's what people felt like. So actually, again, I would just say, mad props to Vitality for actually having a consistent time where they could win every tournament. Like, I don't think anyone else has ever really approached that.
No, everybody was saying that the game was so inconsistent, nobody would ever do it. And then next thing you know, Didn't lose for
By
basically
the way, they
6 months.
low-key sort of saved CS too. I always said the same thing at the beginning of CSGO about Nip. If you saw how bad the game was, bro, if there hadn't have been a team that was dominant with
I had to
already
play
great
it, man.
players like Get Right and Forrest, people would have hated on that game so badly. If there'd have been different winners every event, they'd have gone, oh, it's just random. Again, CS is ruined. Like, it's not a serious esport. I think it's actually, that's why even though in the moment it can feel suffocating when one team just gets to win everything, it does also show they've like elevated the game to a certain level, though, that you've got to kind of try and reach it. Because I agree with you. Every off-season move looked like it was just to beat Vitality. The Na'Vi one, I mean, if FaZe could have signed Simple, they would have. You know, all those moves looked like they were all like Hail Marys to beat Vitality. Even the Spirit one, which hasn't even happened yet. They're still waiting for him to join.
The alleged one.
Yeah. The alleged move. The Spirit thing, though.
No, I was just going to say, who knows what's going to happen there, right? Like, they're probably like, do we really want to do this? Oh, my God. Zway's kind of... I just watched Zway die 10 times long without a single kill on Dust 2. Maybe they might reconsider here.
That's why the based move is this, fl0m. It's based, but it's also really abusive to Zway. It's like you sign today, and then you go, welcome back Zontics in favour of Zway. And then Zway's like, oh, why did I join this team?
I
you just bench me. It's off for you, see ya. It's like that meme of fucking Family Guy, a Toy Story, whatever. Like, I'm tired of playing with you now, Zway. Drop him today. There you go.
Well, so Spirit never that sort of Vitality, the Vitality era at the first half of the year, Spirit and Vitality never really faced off. They always kind of ended up. I think Spirit got knocked out quite a few times, and there wasn't.
I think they only played at Katowice. I think that was it. I think it was just the Katowice final. Was it? I think I don't think they ever met aside from that. Off the top of my head.
Yeah, so like we never really got to see that rivalry, which I think everyone kind of wanted. And then obviously Spirit comes in now. They win Cologne, they win Blast, and they were then ranked #1 based off that. And I still think there was an interview with Donk where he said, as far as we're concerned, we're not the best team in the world until we beat Vitality. That was the line that he made, and something like, you know, in a typical Donk fashion. It was probably during a winner's interview when everyone should have been celebrating, and he was like, well,
all the lights were probably off, like he in a cloak or something.
But do you think Spirits, I mean, we've seen them now, their changes to try and beat Vitality could be their downfall as well? Because, I mean, we all just watched we've recorded this straight after a Blast game where Spirit looks horrifically bad. I mean, is that sort of happening as well? Do you think with a couple of these teams where they've tried to make these changes so focused on upping firepower to beat Vitality that it's actually been to their detriment?
I mean, when the bar isn't as high anymore, yeah. I mean, I think that's. But the scary part is what if Vitality does do what we're talking about, where they actually are that team that can actually pull themselves up. It's funny enough that you're gonna feel good or bad based on somebody else's team. Like if your Spirit, like how you're viewing your moves is literally like, well, Vitality kind of sucks right now, so we really didn't need to do all this. But if Vitality goes and wins the major, it's like, well, at least we tried to compete with that, because there was no shot otherwise. If we'd stuck with what we had, we would have got blown out of the water. So it's actually, Spirit's roster moves have nothing to do with Spirit in a weird way, at least in my mind. Like when I'm thinking about it, the comparison I'm making is, can they beat Vitality? And right now, I think they can, but that's not because of something Spirit did. It's because of Vitality.
Also, let's be real. You said it earlier, Sam. What people are forgetting is, if Vitality just wins the next actual, like, S-tier LAN, by the way, do you think also they're just going to quietly go into, like, Apex is going to do some fucking skit, like, I just got the test results in, I'm 100% that bitch, or something. He's going to do some fucking hilarious TikTok material, isn't he? It's going to be amazing. So they'll just be right back at the top again. We'll see.
Because even I was actually thinking about this now when we were talking about Spirit. I was like, even Falcons, they obviously did the Kioske change or whatever, and that was coming. Falcons was going toe-to-toe with this team.
True.
Like their lineup was working. They were in grand finals. They were going all the way to the 5th map. Then they made a change, and like, look at Falcons now. I know that they beat them at EWC, but I don't count.
That was the 3rd place decider. Come on.
I was just say I don't count those. As far as I'm concerned, the true champions are always. I think actually Carrigan said this at a PGL event where he was like 3rd and 4th there. Like I think it was when Cadian's team beat him.
Yeah, Charlotte beat them.
Yeah, he said 3rd and 4th playoffs. Like you've lost already. Like you were focused on the win.
I knew he was the GOAT IGL. Another great
read
from the goal.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's a lot of prize money on the line for third and fourth, but whatever's Carrigan.
Listen,
Like,
some of us don't
we'll
do it for the money, Sam. Again, going back to it again. Money's not that big to some of us, you know. It's more about the love of the game, you know.
Sure.
The love of the
Okay.
game. Oh
The
my
love of
God.
the
And to be
game.
fair, I can tell you, everyone who works for Yalla Compass definitely doesn't do it for the money. So
Dave, I never did it for the. Yeah, I did it for the love of the game.
that's just the love of the game. And some would say
That
they
was-
hated the game now.
That's funny for me, but there is a lot of people that are going to be very
No,
hurt and
that'd be
feel
really
that.
hurtful. Yeah, that is also my entire brand. So keep going. Let's roll with it.
But I mean, so
By the
Falcons
way,
is
I'm
an
upsetting
absolute.
people. Yeah, that's part of
Yeah.
the that's part of the
What-
process.
Part of the
Wait, what
vibe.
was the question again, though? I got lost.
Don't worry about it.
I was talking about Falcons
Trying to make
basically
up my
trying.
own.
There you go.
Yeah, just answer
The
whatever
idea
you
that
want.
Falcons did
That's
the
where we're
moves
at.
again themselves just for vitality, but maybe that even fucked them up potentially. You could argue it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so I mean, different though, because Falcons never had an identity. They're not Vitality. They don't have MOUZ. They have nothing. Their identity is we kick the bottom frag and sign someone that's really hype and has
And we have infinite money.
great star
exactly.
potential. Yeah.
Sign
Well,
someone else.
It's like if Reddit, HLTV, and Twitch chat all got to make a team. Like they're
Yes.
like, this guy's insane.
By the way, that's also why I get so mad at those exact fans getting mad at the Madden players. It's like, this is your dream that someone essentially has, like an unlimited money tree, and they just keep signing your players that you want them to sign. Like, this is actually
Like a
what you
video
guys
game.
were. Yeah, here's the thing. You're getting mad. This is how HLTV would GM a team. You would just, except you'd actually kick people after maps. You know what I mean? Like, you'd bring in you'd have like sobs and bring him in after map one. When they
You'd have an 8-man roster. You'd be like a Strauss, 8-man roster, man.
Yeah,
Bring in
8-man roster,
Bubsky, bring him back.
exactly.
They would.
Okay, to completely derail this, do you think that Falcons failing is similar to Vitality having their win streak incredibly good for Counter-Strike? Because it shows that you can't just buy a roster.
I do think that also helps CS too, put it that way. Like, put it this way,
Yeah,
I have to say, a part of me was really scared, fl0m, that if they actually really did add, and it's almost happened, but look, it hasn't yet. If they did add Keisuke, and then he really did just frag out, while also Nico and Monty fragged out. I even said to people on this show, it's like, at that point, who even gives a fuck what the other two do? You actually might just add the cheat code to CS. And then the joke is like, Zonic would have to get his praise, but like, what would he even have done? Like, three people shoot everyone dead.
Good job. You made him connect to the server.
I
Good
know.
job, man. Like,
Yes, good job.
but now it's just one more star, though, right? Like, for, well, I guess
Yeah.
they'll add one because they won EWC, right? Never mind.
Meanwhile, I would actually say, and conversely, that's why actually maybe teams like Mongolz and MOUZ that have had the same roster and have worked on it and have had the 7 or whatever losses and then find it. That's actually a way better sort of narrative if you want people to play the game properly and try and be professional and like compete the way you should. Yeah, because they notice those are two teams, by the way, also, Sam, who can't do that. We're like an add a star player. MOUZ just doesn't sign big players. They work off the academy squad, and Mongolz have to have Mongolian people. And in some ways, they were like actually shielded from the temptation to just one more star player that Tonic's doing every 3 months or whatever it is, isn't it?
Yep.
But
His
that's the
system
best
can't
story,
work without
right?
one more star player. It just can't work if you.
It is my one pet peeve about Falcons is that it's constantly like, just wait till next season when we get one more.
Well, here's
star
the thing
player.
people haven't realised, Sam. This is where, as usual, Reddit think they're so funny and creative, but they've missed the most obvious joke ever, and I saved it. So they always complain about the jerseys, don't they? Because, inside the Falcons org, when they win ESWC, they add a star. You idiots, put it together. They just want to add a star. It's right there, the joke's right funny. You didn't even see it.
It's
This is why I
low-hanging
need to be
fruit.
honest.
Thorin, I just made the joke about 5 seconds, but you didn't hear me, so that's
Oh,
that's
fair enough.
actually.
My bad. That's all right.
I
Probably
would
just
say
came
just
in
one
one
more
ear and then I
star.
thought, what a great, this would be a hilarious thing to say. With
I
my
was sliding,
personal-
just subliminally
Oh, you
sliding
did
to
say
get
it,
in there
fair
for you. Inception.
True. You are right, though.
But
Listen, what a great joke. You're a very clever and innovative character.
I'm hilarious. Yeah, you always got to tell people how funny you are, right? That's what.
Listen,
but
I
I
tell
think-
them when a joke's coming, just so they're ready.
Yeah.
I don't trust them
Prepared.
otherwise to get it, the nuance, And these motherfuckers are watching Christopher Nolan movies, not going to know what's going on, so I've got to give them the cliff notes.
That's me. I absolutely have to go. Yeah. But okay. I won't derail anymore and get really
Go on.
grand. Falcons doesn't have team chemistry, so it doesn't really apply to them as much. Is basically the short version of your original question of did Falcons fall into the same trap? They didn't fall into any trap. They were going to do this either way. They were kicking him from day one, and honestly,
Yes.
they're probably figuring out who to kick. They're going to kick kicks in here. God, that's really weird to say. And Nico's got IGL, and they're going to get another star player here. Make it donk in 3 years.
And put it this way, if you are Tessus, mate, just start thinking what the teams and roles you might like to
Yeah,
play.
just start looking.
Just not even your fault. Just be responsible. And
Maybe
see
just
what's coming
ask
down
to
the
play
line.
Pit. Like just go. Just
Right. Okay.
No reason. Do you guys need me in a different spot? Like, no reason. I'll check. Kingston, what spots do you like to? I'll anchor be on Mirage. Like, I like it. I love it here. I've always wanted this. Yeah.
Okay,
so be by the floor of my game, not the ceiling. That's what you need to say. There you go. That's your line.
So the TLDR of this entire episode is, from what I can gather, and there'll be someone who will forward to the back here to see the wrap up. No one's really concerned about Vitality right now. We just think that maybe they started off slow. We all figure they'll just win the next major and everything will be back to normal. Yes? Now you have to say it.
Put it this way, if I really did have a gun to my head, I would predict they come back and be the best team again. It's either them or Spirit, in my opinion. Because of the Today move, I can't know. I sort of low-key think that could cook. So if that happens, but my actual dream, by the way, would be by the time the next major comes, we just have both teams in awesome for, and maybe Falcons as well. I think it would be awesome to have like the peak Falcons with this roster. Spirit gets in here and integrate him, and it works, and he's as good as he was in Heroic, and then Vitality gets back to number one. Because the difference there is, we're not saying be number one and win every event in a row. Now we can actually have the battle. I think people wanted them to have it. Like, let's be real. As much as the history was amazing because of the records, and I mean, part of you did want. I even said this myself on all the shows. Part of me wanted just one of those IEMs or like blasts. Like, just have MOUZ win one. Just have Falcons nick one final off them, just to keep it like, ooh, now how do they bounce? I think that's what people. Here's what people don't want. I'll tie it into what I said earlier about when they hate when there's one dominant team. They always make the mistake of thinking, I want variety. I want a lot of teams to win. No, you want in the middle. What you want is like 3 or 4 really elite teams that take turns to win. You don't want like 10 teams that can win and it's random. You don't want one that always wins because everyone sucks. What you want is 2 or 3 teams that push each other, some like Federer, Nadal, Djokovic shit, That's what you want. So I think that can happen. I think it's right there.
Gun to my head, I have to take Vitality, but it's
surely
less to do
Zywoo
with
gets
them.
better. Come on, mate. Surely, like in 2 weeks,
I know. That's why
you
have to go with them. But it's because when you look around, there's nobody else. Like the only one that I actually think could maybe give me a bit more confidence, just to pander to the crowd that already hates you, would be the Mongolians. But it's not because of anything besides just the fact that I think they do have the ability to just flip a switch. Like they can shoot harder than anyone else I've seen right now as a group. That is it. But I wouldn't put them as a favorite still. Like I'd still pick Vitality. I'd still say the favorite for the next major is Vitality until they lose it. That's how I feel. Unless something catastrophic is shown before the major. I can't even imagine how bad it'd have to be for that. Like they're literally they're in quarters and semis and we're having this. They're not there yet. And nobody else has shown anything.
Yes.
MOUZ sucks right now. I'm just going to say, like, they have lost all confidence. I don't know what happened after they beat Vitality. I think maybe that's what Vitality is actually just losing to everybody else now. So MOUZ's win in the semis is just completely fried their
devaluate, right? Okay.
Like, I don't know, because they look so like they've lost all. So
sure,
they've lost their mojo completely. It looks like they're literally saying in interviews like, yeah, we'll make playoffs and lose. Basically, is what they're saying. That's insane. And Mongolz shoots really hard, so they got to be second in line. Aurora has completely lost the plot. I don't know what's going on there. And Spirit can't figure out what 5 players they want to have join the server. So until proven otherwise, Vitality's my favorite for the major, at least for now.
They'll probably also win Blast London, and that'll happen 3 or 4 days after this episode goes out, and everyone will be like, why did you even make that episode to begin with? Everything was fine. And that's the story of the show.
The new meta is us doing a show and talking about what we can only talk about because it's only what's just happened. And then months later, when other things have happened, people who know then what happened just coming back and going, you didn't even know this was going to happen. But after the fact. So that's the new meta, guys. Don't comment now. Comment in 2 months. When
exactly.
Come back to all the old videos and give Sam 0.01 cents by putting a rude comment.
Thank you. I'm also going to go back now and I'm going to try and start. If I wasn't lazy, I would probably have already done this. Is find like every time we've said something wrong, clip it and just make montages of it, like at the end of the major, and just play them out. I think those would be fantastic.
I like
They're
the way
never
on my
happen.
channel, fl0m, my YouTube manager made a video every time I was right. She's making one of every time we're wrong. Like, by the way, the trolls would love that video though. They'd be loving. Oh, see, proven frauds,
that'd be incredible.
Frauds.
Yeah,
I bet
a techno highlight. Literally, just make a techno highlight right after this with Steel and Thorin.
But still, and Thorin just shitting
Oh,
on him
low
the
key,
whole
if
way.
you actually want
yeah.
to do a based one, take all the things we say and just show like actual examples of them doing the opposite in the game and just owning and like dominating. Yeah, it'll make us look absolutely stupid as fuck, yeah. Not least because here's the thing, I'll roll with it. People have been hating on me forever, but low key, yeah, I might actually get to steal because obviously he like, really cares and prides himself on being super knowledge. So it'll actually really tilt him, I can tell you. So definitely do it. Definitely.
There we go. That's what we're going to do. We're going to troll Steel this week. That's the plan.
Nice.
fl0m, thank you so much for joining us. If you've been watching, you can let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you soon for the next episode.